Hey guys, I'm Chris, aka Slyder, with my co-host E, aka Sonic Knight, and you are listening to the Christian Knight podcast.
Is that right?
Yeah. Wait,
I don't
is it
think.
the lab? I think it's Lucid Rain.
Yeah, I remember it being Lucid Rain, but I don't think anyone's gonna get that joke. But if
Alright,
you're a
then
long time Lucid Rain fan, maybe you
if
will.
you're
All one of you, all zero of you, actually.
if you're a long-term coma patient who's been sleeping for about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that, and listen to the first Christian Night episode, and then woke up today and we're looking for it like we're ready to fucking go. We're still here.
Yes, we are.
Just more or less like 5 name changes ago. So I don't know if you remember the guy that we watched the video about summoning and contacting entities. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember him.
Alright, well, yeah, so that guy is a practitioner of dragon magic.
What the fuck?
Like that's basically like his field of practice. And I watched the intro video, basically him like explaining it in layman's terms, and pretty much the way that he described it and what he was talking about. I am 100% like interested in maybe going forth about learning about that shit.
Where would you go? I mean, besides him, I guess. Where would you go to learn about it?
I guess I would start with him and see if he recommends anything else, and I guess
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Just take this guy's word for it until I can find out more about it.
Yeah, for yourself, right?
So the video I watched, basically, I'm not gonna just reiterate what he was saying because that's kind of like a little bit lame, but I guess I have to paraphrase him a little bit here and there, just considering I know absolutely nothing about it, and I'm gonna like kind of say some of the comments that I read that kind of made me pretty interested in, like, I was like, wow, this is like interesting. So basically this guy has dragon, like, someone who's dragon magic. It means that you essentially work with dragons.
What?
And I mean, it is a pretty perplexing thing for the fact that he says he works with dragons, and from what he said, dragons are essentially older than most of the gods that are on Earth. And I mean, if you think about it, throughout human history, humans have prayed to gods in a bunch of different aspects, a bunch of different religions, a bunch of different gods that like have no other connection to anything else in the world, and then a lot of ones that are connected and shit. So you kind of have to say, like, that's why would they just make things up, and why would they pray to things that have no basis on anything at all?
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean? Like, and in every culture there's been dragons. I mean, medieval.
Yeah, literally.
Like Europe, there was dragons. Asia, there was dragons. South America and North America, there was dragons. There's essentially, I mean, that's kind of really all the continent. And Africa, I'm fairly certain there were dragons. And Australia, there were dragons. So that's like pretty much every continent. It had dragons like in its history. So
yeah,
why
dragons
are
are
these
everywhere.
creatures like in the forefront of so many different myths and mythos of different things? That kind of had me intrigued because I've always been kind of like intrigued by them and thinking they're fucking cool as hell type of thing. But essentially, from what he said, is they're older than pretty much like any entity that's been on Earth, and essentially he works with them, and has worked for them for 20 plus years, and even said that he has dragons like in his house. He has a guardian, and I guess some of them they're able to physically manifest. And from what I understand, it's like which would make sense with something that obviously is powerful and is something that's more of a spiritual or like, you know, energy-based life form that they and it kind of goes with shit like any entities like ghosts. Really, you could go down the line. If shit wants you to know it's there and wants you to see it, you'll fucking see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you have the willingness to see it and it wants you to see it, it'll see it. And if you don't have the willingness to see it, you very well still might see it, but maybe you won't. And if it doesn't want you to see it, like, you're not gonna see it. So I guess it's kind of like essentially that these things could be around you at any time, and
so he has seen these things.
he has them in his house. He has a guardian. He said he has multiple. And then I was looking through comments, and like one that was really interesting to me, and it kind of fell in line with what this guy was talking about. This guy said he was on a DMT trip, which I don't know if you've ever, we've discussed that, and you know, it's more or less a thing that, you know, is all mental, and you know, you kind of just knock out and you're out for a little bit. But I guess when he came to and still was kind of feeling a little woozy, they were having a fire, and he saw a giant green dragon like sitting by his tree and like fucking winking and waving at him, and eventually it like spoke to him.
That sounds fucking terrifying.
And I mean, I've had experiences on psychedelics where I have seen things following me, and I saw the Grim Reaper follow me. At least that's who, you know, from, you know, like historical text and what people have kind of described as.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I saw.
Well, you know what they say, like, it's kind of like your whole third eye thing. You're seeing things that are in fact there. It's just that you don't see them unless you're on that substance. I'm not saying that's absolutely true, but that's what people say.
I think there's maybe a little bit of merit. I think if you want to see something that's there, and you really want to see something, you can probably see it. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of like the whole thing with ceremonial magic and just magic in general, is being able to reach out and being like willing to open your mind to different things. Whereas when you do drugs, it's kind of like it's like a forced realization. Like, it's kind of like,
yeah, right.
One of them is natural, and it's through hard work and through, you know, willingness of spirit, I guess you could say. Like, you know, you essentially saying, like, I want to see this, I'm willing to spend time, energy, and devote energy to something.
That's probably some serious mental strain, like.
Yeah, whereas, doing a substance is essentially just like a cheat code.
Yeah, right.
So
it's kind of like the tulpa thing we talked about. It's like it's not gonna happen unless you really, really try. And if you guys don't know what a tulpa is, which I doubt you do, it's like a kind of like an imaginary friend in your own head, and that sounds creepy, but they respond to you, and when you say like, you can literally talk to them, and they'll respond to you without you making them respond. That's how I can describe it. So
yeah, you know, I actually talked to that with someone the other day because they said tulpa and didn't even know what it was, and it just came out of nowhere. It's like it's the whole thing of what do they say of shit just falling in line. Like, something happens and instantly it pops up somewhere else. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's fucking.
What do you mean it pops up somewhere else?
Just like it was brought up last week, and it's not something that like. Then all of a sudden it's brought up again.
Oh,
you know
yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
What's the fucking word for that?
I mean, there's I think that's called synchronicity. I don't know if it's the same thing.
Yeah,
but
synchronicity. That's the exact word. And I hear people talking about that shit all the time. And
yeah, it's pretty interesting, honestly.
like just I'll be real. So just listening to people, kind of different people's experiences with a bunch of different religions, a bunch of different ways of thinking, and I'm not gonna say that I'm committed to getting into the Lima, but I am like looking into essentially starting that journey and at least like giving it a go, seeing how it works out, and if it doesn't, like I'm not really that worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you get no results, you didn't really all you
Or
wasted was time,
yeah, if it's
right?
something that seems like I don't want to do, like here's the thing in life and with anything, it's not like once you start something you can't just say you don't want to do it. Like
Yeah, right. I mean, the only time it's not worth it is if you literally devoted like like 5 years of your life to it and reap no results. That's the only time where it's like, all right, like you need to like cut your losses and stop that shit. Like, come on.
yeah, so I mean essentially with especially something like that, you're kind of just making a pact with yourself and like a covenant with yourself. So if you don't want to continue it, like it's kind of like it is what it is. And even then, even if like you're getting into more advanced things where you're, I guess, working with other people or other things, like I guess you just have to be like honest with yourself and anything that you're working with and saying like I decided that this is like something I don't want to do, and just hope that there's an understanding. And I guess I mean I don't really think there's too many repercussions that could befall on you.
Yeah,
Maybe pissing people or things off that you don't necessarily want to piss off, but even then, like I doubt the world is that vindictive, especially if you're
yeah.
doing
I
stuff
mean,
that is stuff that's in a spiritual sense. You're doing things that are for the spirit essentially, which all this stuff is kind of hearsay too. You know
yeah.
what I mean? I haven't really practiced any of it, so I guess I'll be able to tell you once I start getting into this shit a little deeper, and
So
once
like,
we can make some more videos.
yeah, that would be pretty interesting. So say you get like, say nothing does happen, like you reap absolutely no results. Would that like kind of skew your how you believe it's like validity? Like, would you think maybe none of this is a thing?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of variables and shit, and some of it
Yeah,
could very well be, a learning curve, or just, I have family, and I can tell you right now, there's nothing I'm going to my entire
what what did you
life.
say? You broke up. I heard you have a family and then you broke up.
Damn, that's weird that did that, huh? That's
Yeah, I don't know
weird.
why is that weird?
Yeah, that's fucking weird. I don't know, just because of what I said after that.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear what you said.
What I said was, there's nothing that I would devote my absolute self to. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be willing to, give things a go and try and, devote time and put effort in and, work towards something. But I couldn't imagine something that I see that I'm like, this is going to take forefront in my life. Like, there's nothing that I could see doing that. Even if it's like, it doesn't have to be something that's spiritual, like a job. Like, there's just nothing, because I kind of put my kids before myself.
Yeah, right.
So, if anything, I might do all this stuff, and then it'll make me realize that I'm doing this stuff for my kids. So, if I feel like I can become a better person or it can improve our quality, then I would take it very serious, but I would still make sure that I'm putting them first and still doing, things
Yeah, I
that
mean,
need to be done.
like your responsibilities, like.
Yeah, so that's something like, I don't know, have you put any thought to anything like that, or, I mean, we talk about it, different things like that a fair amount. So I'm sure, I know we've had this conversation before. It's just more or less. I don't want to speak for you, but
No,
from what
yeah.
I remember, you're kind of like, you don't want to invest a bunch. Kind of the same thing. You don't want to invest a bunch of time in, and then like things like that. There's a whole bunch of superstitions and just different
Yeah.
different things that could potentially scare someone off, and if you don't do it right, you'd be like, well, I don't want to like fuck with something without any prior knowledge. Which, my counter argument would be to that. I know I'm literally speaking for you, and these are not your words.
No, you're fine.
So, but I would just say the only way that you can start with something is beginning to try and learn about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, and I'm sure there's a learning curve with all this shit, and if it's a self journey where you're just working on yourself, and if anything, even if, let's say, for the sake of playing devil's advocate and being a realist, none of this stuff is real, at least it might make you think critically about yourself. So if anything, I would think it might make you a better person, or at least come to be at peace with yourself a little bit more. Just being put in a situation that you're thinking like that. I could be fucking wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I always got the impression that with stuff like that, you had to devote so much time and effort into it that it was like, I didn't want to I didn't want to dedicate myself that hard to something that I have no idea anything about. Like, that was kind of my thing, but that's completely an assumption. Like, I'm not saying it's like that, but that's always what I've heard.
So if I got into some of this stuff, delved into it, and we're able to tell you things, would you be open to being like, all right, yeah,
Possibly. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It really depends. Like, completely depends on what it is like that I'd be having to do and think about and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I lost my train of thought, to be honest with you. But no, I think it's an interesting thing, and kind of like what I'll just reiterate. You can just learn the basics about things, and I'm sure that's not very hard to learn the basics. And once you start seeing basics, you probably can get a feel for different things, and at that point, you can kind of go and look and decide whether it's something you want to do, or whether it's like a waste of time, or something that it's like a bad idea. It's like, you have free will, so no matter what, you can say no, you don't want to do something, and nothing can force you to do anything.
Yeah.
And from the limited understanding that I have, if something is telling you that you have to do something, then it's not really how it is. Like, things like this, they don't force you to do anything. Like, it's all about you making your own decisions. And I mean, it makes sense. Just look at folklore in general, and we've talked about this so many times. If you literally look in folklore, you have to invite things in. You have to be willing. Things do not just rush in unannounced and uninvited, because that's not how that shit works. Like,
that's
if
what
you
it
look
seems
at
like.
look at any like type of mythos or folklore. So even like vampires is an example. To cross a threshold, you have to invite them in.
Yeah.
Like, they can't just go in your house, like, without you,
Yeah, right.
wanting. Like, pretty much there's, like, it's like a understanding, or I guess you could even call it, like, a contract. They have to, like, it has to be, both parties be willing.
Yeah. I mean, you also can't really, but at the same time, you can't really blame anyone for being like, I don't want to get involved in that.
No, and here's the thing, is I'm sure it's like with anything, like, look at Genius, for example. You know, you got to think, you know, you have to be smart with how you word things, and you have to have an understanding. So I'm sure it's like anything. You're going to get taken advantage of if you don't do your due diligence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So it's like with anything, even something, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to talk about this without like a real basis or like serious understanding of it. You know, so it's kind of like I'm kind of talking out my ass, so to speak. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
but
just don't really know much besides what you've heard every now and then from this
yeah.
stuff.
But I could imagine, you know, something that is, you know, essentially, I guess what we could be saying is it's essentially like Lovecraftian-esque themes, you know, to a certain extent. So it'd be a lot to unravel, and it kind of be like, I guess you have to ask some existential questions as to our meaning here and who we really are. If there's a deeper meaning to who we really are, then I could understand why they want to work with us and why they'd be willing to work with us, why they'd be willing to help us, why they'd be willing to do anything. If you know, there's great potential in the human race, and
Yeah,
we're
that
more
makes sense.
than we're more, you know, kind of like a lot of conspiracies they were saying that we're more than you think, type of shit.
Yeah.
It would make a lot of sense to me that yeah, we're not really what we think we are, and that's why these things are even willing to help us, because I don't know, it kind of goes with like Nirvana, and just I guess it depends on your ideals of what the afterlife is, but who's to say that something can't start off as a human being? And if everything's about spirit, you start off as one thing, and it's like anything, you practice and you get better and you get stronger. You know, people change, and obviously, like, a person can't change into a fucking kangaroo, but like, who's to say that you can't become something else with practice or with experience or gaining abilities? And I mean, I'm sure the amount of time that we're talking about here is more time than we can comprehend. You know, even
I mean, most likely.
it could be potentially that we've all lived more lifetimes than are countable, and
Yeah.
in different places that we can never imagine. Like, you really, who's to say? And if that were the case, then I could completely understand that. That's why things would be willing to work with us, and I could understand the same way that things would be willing to hold the skies, you know, hold the reins over us and try and make sure that we don't discover that, because if there is potential power and something, you know, like we're going to talk about the big three, you know, Catholicism, Judaism, and Islam. You know, the God in that. Think about this. Think how many people pray to him. If an entity or being or higher power or whatever, you know, you would want to call it, you know, gain strength from people essentially worshiping and praying and, you know, essentially giving their energy to it, it would definitely be in its best interest to call everything else heresy and evil, and say that you're going to burn in hell if you don't do it, and then basically hold a veil over everyone's eyes. and anyone that tries to see past that veil, make sure the rest of humanity basically shuns them and makes their life worse. And like, obviously, if you gain a lot of power from people, that's probably what your attitude would be, and that's probably what you would try and do, because you stand to gain a lot from people being ignorant to things.
Yeah, right.
So that's when, kind of like, with that kind of point of view, when I hear things about like, you know, Mr. Morningstar himself and all this shit, like, he's kind of a sympathetic character, because you could argue it's somebody that sees from the same wavelength as that guy and sees like you're fucking using people, and you know, like, it's hard to make assumptions and talk about this shit without any knowledge, you know, about it, other than hearsay. So, but you know, just that's kind of just like, I guess how I would see it. If someone asked me and was like, were asking me to describe how it is and what I would think, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes much sense, or.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting enough, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you really don't know until you like do the shit. But even then, you're probably not gonna know everything like right away, obviously. So
yeah, I think that I think it's not about the fact that you have to sink so much time into it. I think it's the fact that it's like anything in life, is once you start learning, you're not gonna want to stop learning, and there's always more stuff to learn. And the fact is, you're never gonna know everything. So once you start on that, like, you're gonna continue to have to learn, because you're like, the deeper you go into it, the more you're gonna want to know, because the more you know is gonna be the more that it benefits you. And essentially, you kind of get wrapped up. I guess you would get wrapped up in learning and wanting to improve yourself and your situation. You know, I guess whatever it is you get out of it, type of shit. You know.
yeah, right.
I mean, that's kind of how I would see it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. That's how I would see it too.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that it would even be like a huge commitment if you look at it that way. It'd just be like, what are you willing to do, and
like how much are you willing to put into it? But I mean, if it's one of those things where it's like you get what you put in, and it's like you don't really want to, you know, put in that much. It's kind of like, well, you're not going to see much results.
Then you would. I feel like you'd be able to see that pretty quickly, or at least gauge that somewhat quickly.
Yeah, that's true. You probably could.
Yeah, you'd obviously be able to say like, well, this is clearly not.
Yeah, from the start, basically.
Yeah, not what I want to do. So.
Yeah. I mean, you really gotta have like first of all, a very open mind.
Yeah.
Second of all,
a naturally curious person.
Yeah,
let's say.
that too. You have to be very curious, because if you're communicating with other beings and shit, then it's like you're gonna be taken aback by that, whether you think you're ready for it or not. So if someone's not ready for it, they're gonna be, who knows how they'll react.
And you kind of have to be skeptical too, because you have to be willing to, you know, think like you don't really necessarily know, even if something is told to you. That's the thing with even like people, like, you never really know what someone's thinking or what they're saying is true. You know what I mean? Even family, even people that you know well, like, you really can't.
That's true, yeah.
And even over simple things, like, people lie about simple things for literally no reason at all. So,
yeah.
I mean, that is kind of like, what's to say that everything I'm quote unquote learning is correct? Like, what if, like, like, what if it's just like not? Like, who knows? I guess, but I guess that's the risk you take.
Yeah, well, you can pretty much say that about anything.
Yeah,
I
you
think
could.
about that all the time. Like, how do I know anything that I know is right?
Yeah, that's very true.
I kind of don't.
Yeah.
I think about that all the time. Like, it's kind of gives me a headache thinking about it, just because it's like, man, maybe I know absolutely nothing, and everything I ever thought was absolutely off base. And
Yeah.
that's something that's kind of scary about religion, is if you started off with an ideal that was wrong in the first place, everything you learn by proxy is all wrong, and then you're thinking everything into a false ideal.
Yeah, because your foundation is wrong, so it's everything is wrong pretty much.
Which I would kind of go, how I kind of see it is, I mean, my beliefs change somewhat frequently, I'd say. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have my phone charging inside and I have my headphones on, so yeah, my beliefs change like somewhat frequently. But I would say most religions and points of view are like a lot of it's just half truths. Like all of them are right in their own ways.
Yeah.
And I think it just kind of comes down to, if, like we said, we'll talk about this at a different time, but if something helps you get through the fucking night, then that's the belief system for you, and that's probably the belief system that you should keep and that you should move forward with.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't help you get through the night, then there's no point in
you're just kind of
sinking time into something you don't. Yeah, there's no point in sinking time and effort into something that doesn't give you peace of mind. Like, that'd be just fucking dumb. And
yeah, exactly.
I've been working on it, but I get in arguments with people over religion, and I realize how stupid it is. But it's kind of like, I don't know. I say I understand how stupid it is and like how it doesn't matter, and then I go and do the fucking opposite and argue over people, like argue with it over people. So that's something that I gotta work on. But yeah, so way off topic, but essentially this guy practices dragon magic to kind of bring it back, and he talks to dragons and shit like that.
I mean, those are some crazy claims. I guess you have to just look around and see if anyone's saying like, oh yeah, I tried this too. But you don't really see people saying that, I don't think.
I looked at comments, and it seems like it's not really it's esoteric, it's mysticism.
Oh yeah, very.
It's shamanism, like, it's a occult thing, so, the amount of people that are going to be into it, and the amount of people that are going to vocally, like, express it on the fucking mountains, it's probably going to be lower than anything, just because, first off, people don't believe that shit.
Yeah, that is true.
And people are gonna feel some type of way about that shit on top of it. So
yeah, I mean, well, in those concentrated communities, you'd think they'd feel safer talking about that if they do involve themselves in that stuff.
Yeah, but I'm sure if you search it out, you'll find a lot of people that involved in. Like,
I'm sure
like a bunch of people commented on it. A bunch of people have said that they are delving into it, and from what I understand, people have talked to them, and
Yeah, because I've never seen people say like,
oh yeah, I'm doing this too. I don't usually see that, but I'm not really looking for it, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like something like if you look at occult Buddhism or something, like, how many times have you heard anyone fucking talk about it? Like, unless you search it out.
Yeah, right. You pretty much
None.
have to search it.
None. Yeah, you had to search it out.
And they're probably all in the same places.
Yeah, there's in Facebook groups, they're in anywhere that people connect on the internet, like people, flock together and people that have common interests. That is the good thing about the internet is people that have common interests, even if it's a niche interest or a niche religion or, belief system or really anything, like you at least have a way to connect with someone who potentially shares some of your ideals, which is really cool. Whereas back in the day, you had to search around, you might come across something.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I 100% believe, like, don't think that one religion could be absolutely correct because not everyone has access to that shit. So how could one belief be entirely right and then some people be damned right out the gate because they have absolutely no access to it and there's no fucking way that they would have that ideology out of nowhere from, from nothing, it's impossible. So how a belief system that can be forced like that and then people literally have no way of receiving it at all and then they're just damned to fucking, suffer. To me, that's fucking, I just don't see how that would fucking work, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense.
No, that's just my opinion, but like there's still if we look at what is that island off the coast of India that is still essentially uncontacted,
Oh, I don't know what it's
island
called. I know what you're
Doctor
talking about though.
I'm sure they don't have any concept of modern religions.
They might, but not the religion we know. Probably. I mean, I'm making assumptions, but
they've had contact with like one group of people a very long time ago, and they didn't have any antibodies. So the people that had left got sick, and then a bunch of people in the tribe got sick. So then they said Sentinel Island is what it's called.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but so those people like had one experience where like nope. So anyways, I doubt that they were exposed to disease and basically the small tribe got fucked up. So I'm sure anything that people told them, they didn't listen to any of that shit because they're like, you guys come in here and then fucking kill us. So why the fuck would we listen to anything you have to say? Type of thing,
Yeah, right.
And I'm sure that's how pretty much every culture was, except they actually kind of got lucky for the fact that we're in a modern society where we're colonialism and basically us forcing our ideals. That shit like kind of went away after like World War II at the latest, to where that shit's that shit's dead. And so they kind of like were a product of just the right time of being in contact with people.
Yeah.
And people like not going to ravage their shit. So that's kind of like that's a really weird situation.
I was saying the Sentinelese people, like, I guess you really should just leave those people alone. Just leave them to their ways, cause I don't know, like.
Well, that's what
can you do?
That is what it is. It is what it is, and anytime anyone tries to do anything around there, they shoot arrows at them, and they're like not friendly.
Yeah.
So they really are uncontacted, and no one fucks with them because they're like.
I mean, you can't help them. There's nothing like. I don't know. First of all, I don't know why they're so behind, but that's a different story.
Well, it's like they're just a tribal people that were an isolated part of the world that no one else. I'm sure there's.
Which isn't their fault.
That are deep in jungles or like there's plenty of space in Papua New Guinea. a bunch of different islands in Indonesia, a bunch of different islands in the Pacific. You know, that would be considered like I guess you would consider them Pacific Islanders, like the Maori or Hawaiians or just like islands like that probably we haven't really, maybe we glossed over them or just haven't run across them, and some of them could be fairly large, and we just like or different things where people say you stay off that fucking island and people just kind of forgot about it. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that have been untouched by modern society.
Yeah, they're probably definitely.
This is a very big world.
Yeah, I mean we can't we can't possibly 100% cover everything to the extent that we've covered, like America, for example. Like, not every place is gonna get that much like attention, I guess, because some places we probably just don't see the point. It's probably just like, who cares about that place? Like,
Yeah, and even America, there's plenty of places that people haven't fucked with. I mean, there's not.
Yeah, there definitely is.
When I say plenty, obviously, a majority of this fucking shithole has been, we've dragged shit all over it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And stained the earth there, but there's a fair amount that's kind of untouched.
Yeah, I mean that probably goes for anywhere in the world. Like, there's like there's like Russia where half the country is not even habitable, and it's just who really even knows what's in there.
Yeah, a majority of Siberia is pretty much untouched. Like a big
there's
ass
probably
chunk.
Quite a few places in the world that are just like that.
Yeah, even in like South America, there's plenty of jungle that hasn't been fucked with. But I don't know. So I'm thinking of like listening to that guy a little more and trying to see that. I'm not gonna say see it through, but at least look into it. So I'll let you know how that goes. And
yeah, definitely.
If I feel like it's something interesting and something to do, then I would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, guys, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.